a little bit. We teased and we said that Carson Greene is here, and what in the world could we be doing with Carson Greene this morning? Well, as you've heard this morning from Fox News and others, this is the 54th anniversary of our landing on the moon, and Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin made that historic day. And I actually am looking at a picture of it right now provided to me by Carson on the 40th anniversary of that day, 14 years ago today. Carson, you were involved in a very, very neat event. We want to talk about that today. Our conversation with Carson Greene is brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. So the family of Jimmy Stewart, 14 years ago, said, what an honor for Dad to be inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame. And, of course, Jimmy had passed away many years before then. But they said, who would be the perfect person to represent us there? And somebody would snap their fingers and said, I know, Carson Greene. Isn't that the way that it went down?
That's exactly the way. 54 years ago, I was sitting in my little house down in Charleston, West Virginia, watching my Sears silver tone black and white TV, and I saw this landing on the moon. I thought, wow, this is great to see something like this happening in my lifetime. And at that time, I was doing a little bit of flying, so I enjoyed the fact that it had something to do with flying. Never in my longest or largest dream did I ever think that I would have the opportunity to actually meet those two people, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, who stepped on the moon. And I give all the credit to the Stewart family because I happened to be the president of the Jimmy Stewart Museum at that time. By the way, I'm the board chairman emeritus, whatever that is. So I'm not involved hands-on anymore. But so I just couldn't believe that I would be invited to go to an event where the Apollo astronauts, most of them attended, including Neil Armstrong.
Yeah.
Yes, but well, let me tell the story how it sort of started. If you'd like me to do that, I can do that.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, the association, National Aviation group, decided that they wanted to induct another person into the museum, National Aviation Museum, and they chose Jimmy Stewart as one of those inductees. So the family was not able to attend, and they asked me if I would be willing to attend since I was president of the museum at that time, and I said, I would be honored, never dreaming that these folks from Apollo would be there. It was sort of a surprise. Yeah. So my wife and I packed our bags, headed to Dayton, Ohio, and on Friday night they had like a general dinner, and there must have been 1,000 people there at that event. And the Apollo astronauts were there, and they were up on stage. And Saturday was the day that the induction began and all the festivities and all that. So that evening at dinner, they had the inductees in the front row, and they had tables of, I think, 10 people. And they had people at each table, astronauts, and one was Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and Eugene Cernan was there. He was the last man to walk on the moon, Apollo 17, and Gene happened to be at our table. So this was just amazing to see all these people there. So before the event, I had a call from their executive director, and he asked me if I had any idea who could maybe MC the program and be a part of it, and someone had to present the award on behalf of the Stewart family to me. So I suggested Nick Clooney as the MC, and Nick agreed to do that. And I asked my friend Rich Little if he would present the award. So they were involved in that. And
I bet you they turned it into a night, didn't they?
Well, it's interesting. Rich was supposed to make a presentation, which he did, but he also put on a program. It lasted about an hour. About an hour. So that was unexpected, but that was great. And we had a lot of people there, aviation folks and that sort of thing. But it was just, I don't know, so great to be there representing the Stewart family. Everybody knows Jimmy as an actor, of course, but he was also a pilot, and we know that too. He was in World War II and flew about 21 missions over Germany. And so he was honored, and that was just a great honor to sort of be there. And I did have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Armstrong, and I went over to his table and I asked him a question. I said, Mr. Armstrong, would you mind to give me an autograph? I'd like to take it back to the museum. Of course, I'd like to have one too if you want to give an autograph. Mm-hmm. And he was very kind. He said, sir, I'm sorry, I don't give autographs. He said, but I'll have a picture taken with you if you like that. I said, sure. He said, Jimmy Stewart, he said, Jimmy was a wonderful person, a great American. He talked about Jimmy for 30 seconds or so.
Yeah.
And then Buzz Aldrin was at the next table, and I went over to Buzz and asked him if I could get an autograph for the museum and maybe a picture. He says, no, I'm busy right now. He's sort of a gruff guy. But anyway, I said, no, sir, I'd like to have this autograph so I can, take it back. And he finally signed the autograph. Mm-hmm. But it was quite an event. And I've been so blessed and honored when I was involved directly with the museum, which has been like 28 years. I'm a founding board member. I've had the opportunity to attend a lot of events that really, really are inspiring. But this event, to realize that we were there with all these heroes, if you will, astronauts and military folks, it's just something that I will never, ever forget.
Yeah, and we should tell folks as well, you said Dayton, Ohio. That's where Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is,
right.
And that's where the wonderful museum is, one of my favorite places in the world, where all of the old Air Force Ones are kept.
Exactly.
And you get to actually go there and walk through the Air Force Ones that have served our country for all of these many years. So that had to be just a tremendous event. But talking about Jimmy Stewart, as you represented the Stewart family on that night, and his military career, it's wonderful that the museum itself has celebrated that away from Hollywood experience of Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
It is such an important part of his life, yes, but of the way that our country dropped everything and got to the matter of winning World War II. And he was a bomber pilot and took on some very, very dangerous missions, and it affected him the rest of his life.
Well, I do know that his daughter said that he's most proud of his service in the military, in the Air Force, Army Air Force. He was in the action. He had bullets actually coming up through his cockpit, his airplane. It's a true story.
He actually had to fight to get into the world.
Exactly. He didn't weigh enough. He had to make sure he could weigh enough to get into the service. We're so proud that we have this Jimmy Stewart Museum here. And although today may not be important to some folks, I mean, we know it's a national thing where we landed on the moon, but also the fact that Jimmy Stewart was inducted into the Aviation Hall of Fame, National Aviation Hall of Fame, on the 40th anniversary of the Apollo 11 landing. I think that's significant, and we should be proud of that.
I am looking at the program from that night, and I see the names at the dinner that night. Of course, Nick Clooney was the MC, but some of the great military names of all time, and then there are some other people who were on the dais on that night. A guy by the name of Arnold Palmer, maybe you've heard of him.
Yeah, we actually, his room was right beside our room at the hotel. We popped out the door, and there he was, and he was very friendly. I mentioned the fact I was Indiana. We talked for a while, and we also bumped into a couple of the astronauts getting off the elevator, and they were very nice, very kind.
Cliff Robertson was a part of that night as well.
Well, he wasn't there that night. He was ill that night. He did not make it. But
wow.
Anyway, Mr. Lovell, Apollo 13, and Mr. Fred Hayes, they were there, and Mr. Lovell walked off the elevator again, and we bumped into him, and we were just talking. And it's interesting that they're so easy to talk with. I know that.
Now, had the movie been out by then? I think it had.
Yes.
Been.
Oh, yes. Oh,
It had
yes.
been,
Oh, yeah. But Fred Hayes, very nice low-key fellow. He was at
Yeah.
Apollo 13.
He was
very
one of the
friendly,
three there too.
But it was a great experience. I just wanted to share that. I think it's a special day. I know for me it is to remember those days that, like I say, in 1969, sitting in my living room, never dreaming that I would have the opportunity to meet these people through the Jimmy Stewart Museum, actually, through the Stewart family.
We all think back to 1969 and where we were on that date if we were living at the time. I remember I was having a sleep out at one of my childhood buddies' houses that night. And we all slept out on the porch in our sleeping bags, but we all piled into their living room to watch that, and what a night that was. But it's just a wonderful part of our lives to think back to a particular milestone moment, and none bigger than that one.
I don't want to get political, and I won't. I could if I wanted to, but I won't. But after Mr. Armstrong refused to sign the autograph for me, the following week, I guess he was at the White House or something, and the Speaker of the House, Ms. Pelosi, asked him for an autograph for her grandkids, and he very nicely said, "I'm sorry, I don't give autographs." Yeah, that was in the newspaper. And I really got a kick out of that. So he didn't care who it was, Carson Greene or Pelosi. He didn't care.
One or the other. He said, "It's like I have a policy and I'm sticking to it."
That's the way Jimmy would have done it.
Yeah. All right. So we appreciate so much your coming in to visit with us to share these memories. You did bring your commemorative pin. I'm going to hand this to you so you can hold this up. It's not a commemorative pin. It's actually a tie clasp of Jimmy Stewart's. Hold it up, and that's for our viewers on Facebook. And there's the picture of Jimmy. He's actually in that picture wearing that tie clasp, but the Stewart family gave that to you. And you wear that to church every Sunday?
I do wear church every Sunday. I don't wear a suit too often, except once I still wear one to church. But the family gave me this, I guess, for my work at the museum. The daughters sent me a letter. The daughters of Jimmy sent me a letter and a picture telling me that they knew that I used to fly airplanes, and they decided to give this tie class propeller to me. Mm-hmm. And it was Jimmy's, given to him by Leland Hayward in 1935 when Jimmy received his private pilot license. So I have a letter from the family and pictures, and so this is something special. I know when he was here in 1983 for his birthday celebration, he wore this tie clasp. Yeah. And if you watch Johnny Carson's show and he's on there, you can see the tie clasp. But this is something special, and I must say, when I received this and read the letter, I did have a few tears in my eyes that they would be kind enough to give me something like this.
Coming up at church on Sunday, you're going to have everybody coming up to look at that.
Well, it's there. It's nice and shiny, and I really appreciate what they did. This is something special. Actually, I think it should be in the Smithsonian Institute, really.
There you go. Carson, thanks for the visit. We appreciate that.
My pleasure.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com.